But I'm also going to share my story, and some people that are new to my page have no idea about my story. So over 20 years ago, I was in a horrendous car accident. We pretty much went under a 7-ton truck, rolled twice, and the driver died immediately. It was really a miracle that I survived. And I had so many injuries. I had 8 surgeries over the course of 20 years. And a lot of them were for bowel surgery because the seatbelt had crushed my internal organs on impact. I had so much glass go through my face and through my body from the windscreen and from another source of glass, which I'll share about soon. And I was on a mission to really keep myself as healthy as possible. On my 8th surgery, I woke up and I was surrounded by doctors, and they were telling me that I hadn't recovered well. I went in for bowel surgery, and they said, you have showers of blood clots in your lungs. And they thought it was because I'd gone under so much anesthesia, I'd been under for a long time. And they told me I had to be on warfarin potentially for the rest of my life, which is a blood thinner. And I was in my early 20s, fit, healthy, well, vegetarian, didn't drink, didn't smoke, did all the right things. And I was so surprised that this had happened to me. And so they said, look, you're going to die if you don't do this. And so I took warfarin for a few months. And then I went to the hospital. They did x-rays. They said, look, you don't have these clots anymore, but we'd like you to keep taking the warfarin as a kind of just in case situation. And something inside of me was just saying, you know how to heal. And you're going to be just fine. But you need to do something about your own health here. And so I did something which, some people would be very uncomfortable with. So I'm certainly not suggesting that other people do this, but this is what I did. I decided to not take warfarin anymore. And I decided to start looking into other ways of keeping my body well. And I spoke to a friend of mine who was a medical doctor, but also practiced Ayurvedic medicine. And he said to me, if you find a naturally alkaline water, that could really help bring your body into balance. And he made an emphasis on natural. So I thought, well, just drinking water, that's easy. Let me start with the most fundamental principle of life-giving force in this known world. Let me start with water. So I started to trial myself on 2-week trials with different alkaline waters. That's anything that's over a 7 in pH, which stands for power or potential of hydrogen. And so I just started to do that. And I noticed, that I was hydrated and I felt well, but I didn't know anything dramatic. And we have this, the skin suit that we have, so we actually don't see the inner workings of our body. So we only kind of know what's going on by how we feel. And often if we have certain tests can show things from urine or saliva or blood. So I was like, okay, well, I feel all right. I didn't know what I thought, if anything dramatic would happen. And back then I had a wellness center. And so I had a client come and say, I know someone who is only giving their water to cancer patients, and they have their own private source of water. And so I'm like, and they also said it was really high, up in the 9s of pH, 9.9 for that one. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. So I went to see them and I got a month's worth of water to try. And within that month, something rather extraordinary happened. Like I tried it for, actually within 10 days, I noticed dramatic differences. On day 3, and just so we know, we didn't change makeup, didn't change diet, didn't change skincare, I didn't do anything like that. On day 3, I noticed a change in something that a lot of people don't like talking about, which is bowel motions. Given how much bowel surgery I had, I really noticed that things were moving well. And and this is like a really good thing, because we live in such a constipated nation around the third world, where people are not drinking enough good water that is really able to hydrate them really well. And there is a difference between different waters. You know, no two waters really are the same. And so, you know, we can get into that later. So I'm like, oh, that's good. I'm noticing something here. But on day 10, I noticed something dramatic. So I as I said, I was in a car accident, but I had all these bumps coming up on my arm and along my jaw. And I knew my body was purging, but I didn't really know what was going on. And I was like, what is this? And there was this one bit where I just rubbed my finger along my arm and it felt sharp. And it was this big bump, and I was really angry, and it sounds gross. But basically I got some tweezers and I like pulled something out of my arm, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a little bit of green glass. And between day 10 and 12, I pulled 27 pieces of green glass out of my arm. And I knew exactly where it had come from. The man who died in the car accident, he owned a nightclub. And in the back of the car were crates of Steinlager beer, which are in green glass bottles. So when we rolled, the windscreen got more of this side of my body, and the green glass from the Steinlager bottles got this side of my body. So how can water purge this glass out of my body that had been in there for over 20 years? This is one of the reasons that I started on this journey with water, because I had such a tremendous healing experience. I thought, well, maybe it's just me having these experiences. My skin started to improve, you know, all kinds of things started to happen. And in my wellness center, I started giving the water to a lot of different people that wanted to trial it as well. And just so you know, we've got dogs, and they're expecting the courier, so the dogs might go crazy at some point soon, so just letting you know. And so I started giving the water to people to trial. And across the board, from extremely healthy athletes who saw that incremental change that they needed, to people that were very, very unwell and doing water fasts to help heal their body from some very serious issues, and everything in between, from depression to fertility to weight loss to skin issues like eczema, psoriasis, all these different kinds of things. Across the board, everybody was having remarkable results, and I was recording them all. So what is this magic extra bit about this water that makes it different than other waters? So it has a high pH. So we know there was the original source that I was getting it from. It's the same exact aquifer, but it was from not far from here, and that was 9.9. And then that was sold. I couldn't get any more water from there anymore. And I'm like, oh no. And then I found Shona and Ross. And that's the same aquifer. Their water is 9.6. It is beautiful. It's such I call it a medicinal water. I don't know that we can label it like that, but I'm allowed to say what I feel about it. And that's how it feels to me. And in my work, I've seen that there are a few medicinal waters around the world, but hardly, just a few. And when I say that, what I mean is that I think these waters are really for the healing of other water, and that includes the water within us. And because I saw just such dramatic results, I was looking at the analysis and thinking, okay, how much silica is there? How much this is there? You know, what makes the high pH, and is it stable? And we're going to get into that, how stable it is. I think stable pH makes naturally alkaline water superior to waters that have been unnaturally ionized to be of a high pH, because of how stable they are, because of the minerals that are naturally within them.